I would like to formally introduce our keynote finale speaker, Lieutenant General Maria Gervais, United States Army. General Gervais assumed duties as TRADOC Deputy Commanding General Chief of Staff on 28 May 2021, becoming the first female to hold the position. She received her regular Army commission in 1987 as a distinct military graduate of Lander College, go Senators, Reserve Officer Training Corps program in Greenwood, South Carolina, and assigned to the chemical branch. She has a Biology of Science degree in biology. She has a Master's of Military Strategic Studies and a Master of Arts in Human Resources. She has served in a variety of command and staff assignments at every level and has vast experience across all aspects of the Army. Personally, she is married to retired Lieutenant Colonel Chris Gervais, a signal officer who retired after 28 years of service. They have one daughter, Brandy, who's an Army major, serving in the Dental Corps stationed at Fort Bragg, North Carolina, along with their son-in-law, Major Roland Garcia, also in the Dental Corps. Please help me welcome to the stage Lieutenant General Gervais. Thank you.
Hey, thank you. Hey, well, so good afternoon. How's everybody doing this evening? Hopefully pretty good. It's been a good start to the first day. Hey, so let me just say this. It's a great honor to address this distinguished audience, along with our academia and industry partners, and so many of our incredible teammates. And we're all focused on solving some of the toughest problems for our military and our nation. But most importantly, we need to solve those challenges for the most important teammate, and that is our soldier and our warfighters on the ground. Before I begin, I'd like to thank Jeff for the kind introduction. I would say the only thing I would add to that introduction is the one thing that I'm probably most proud of and want you to know is I have a grandson, and life has just been absolutely wonderful. I'd like to thank the United States Geospatial Intelligence Foundation for the opportunity to highlight my thoughts on the role of the metaverse-related technologies for soldier recruitment and also for training. But look, teammates, I gotta manage your expectations here right now before I begin. So first of all, you did not hear geo in my title anywhere. No geospatial, no geointelligence, none of that. My background is technical in a very different area. And then I also need you to know that I'm very thankful that nobody had any type of biometrics on me when I was sitting out there listening to that last panel talk about security and privacy. And then the last thing I need you to know is I know I am the very last thing standing between you and your end of your day. So with that in mind, we're gonna go ahead and get started. For those of you that don't know me, I'm Lieutenant General Maria Gervais, and I currently serve as the Deputy Commanding General of the United States Army Training and Doctrine Command. And I've also served as the Deputy Commanding General for the Combined Arms Center for Training, and also as the Director for the Synthetic Training Environment, or STE as we call it, where we were focused on revolutionizing the way the Army trained by leveraging the incredible technological advancements we were seeing in the virtual and gaming and telecommunications areas. It is through these three assignments where I gained a deeper appreciation how emerging technology and the metaverse can assist us in training, leader development, and recruiting, not just today, but into the future. In my current job, we recruit and train soldiers. We develop leaders and shape the Army by building and integrating capabilities to ensure our Army remains the best trained, the best equipped, the best led, the most respected, and the most powerful land power in the world, bar none. TRADOC focuses on building the foundation for our Army and how it trains, how it develops the leaders and operates across echelons and the joint force and with our coalition partners. Now this year's theme of GEOINT is from maps to metaverse. And I'm sure it is no surprise that my remarks are going to focus on the impact of new technologies and the metaverse on our society, especially on Gen Z and Gen A populations, along with the rapid advancements we see in this field, and lastly, why it is important for us, particularly in terms of recruiting, training, and leader development. So what I'm going to do here for the next 20 minutes is spend some time talking to you about the challenges we see in recruiting and how we are adjusting course to better connect with our youth and the American people. Then I'll talk about how we are using metaverse-type environments today in recruiting and in training applications, and what the future of how we use the metaverse may look like. So let's start with recruiting, the recruiting operational environment. It is no surprise to any of you when I tell you that the current recruiting environment is tough, and it has been the toughest it has ever been since the inception of the all-volunteer force 50 years ago. And it is projected to remain tough for the next few years. The Army missed its recruiting mission last year, and we will fall short of the ambitious goals that were set by the Secretary of the Army and the Chief of Staff of the Army that they set for us this year. And it is just not the Army experiencing this, it is our sister services. They're also projected to miss their recruiting mission also. We are facing many challenges that we must overcome, and we must navigate through to reverse this trend. A critical challenge stems from connecting with our younger generations. Today's kids, Generation Z and Generation A, Alpha, are a different group who have grown up with technology in their hands, focusing on different skill sets, interests, and ways to communicate. And we must change our industrial age processes for recruiting, for training, and leader development. And we must meet them where they are in order to recruit this talent that we are going to need to deliver the Army of 2030 and 2040, and also to be able to execute multi-domain operations. I want to spend the next few minutes talking about both Gen Z and Gen A little from the recruiting standpoint, but more from what we should be thinking about for training, for leader development, and where a metaverse world would be the expected norm for these generations. Let's start with Generation Z. They were born mid to late 90s through the 2010 time period. Gen Zs are who we are recruiting right now. They are our sergeants, they're our company commanders, but in 2040, they will be our battalion and brigade commanders and sergeant majors. Now, Gen Z is the first generation to have grown up with the internet and portable digital technology, the cell phones, the laptops, the devices from a very young age. They are digital natives. It is like second nature to them. This generation started interacting with technology on a regular basis, whether at home or at school, at a young age, and technology quickly became an integral part of this generation's lives. Now, Gen Z grew up and they continue to conduct so many facets of their life online. They made friends online, they shop online, they date online, they learn online, and they are chronically online. They were incredibly present in the early beginnings of the metaverse. The metaverse is still being defined, what it will look and operate by tech industry. But initial metaverse launches that are available right now, they're good. But all the avatars are cartoon looking and only one half of their bodies can be seen on the screen. And that hasn't resonated very well with everyone. So the metaverse of the future is still being defined, and I believe the Army has a great opportunity in assisting in defining what the metaverse will look like and also perform like to users. So both Generation Z and Generation A are going to be the ones who are going to define what the metaverse needs to look like tomorrow and what it will look like when technology will provide metaverse users total comfortable immersion. Now, Gen Z are incredibly familiar with the metaverse and virtual connection platforms of today. They are spending copious amounts of time immersed in early technical concept platforms, trying to vie to define what the future metaverse will look like and perform like for all future users. And they routinely communicate and share their content through various online platforms such as Discord, Twitter, Snapchat, Fortnite, and you could go on because there's a long list. But Gen Z became accustomed to an environment of unending and various sources of information, instant gratification, scrutiny, and judgment. From social media's likes, dislikes, friends, befriend, unfriend, and the ability to communicate anonymously behind aliases and also the keyboard. Now, if you turn your attention to Generation Alpha, Gen Zs evolved as technology was introduced throughout their generation. However, it is Generation Alpha I have my eye on so we can understand how we need to evolve now in recruiting, in training, and in leader development. And I believe it is at this strategic point where I believe the Army can help define its role in defining the metaverse for tomorrow. Now think about Generation Alpha. This is the first generation to be born entirely in the 21st century. Think 2010 to about 2024. This generation has a relationship with screens unlike any other. Generation Alpha is in 6th grade right now and will be company commanders in the Army of 2040. They were especially impacted by COVID-19. The oldest Generation Alphas were only 7 or 8 when COVID-19 was first declared a national emergency. They spent the better part of the next 3 years online. This generation has quite literally spent their entire life online. They meet their friends online, and some of their best friends are friends they have never met. In the span of their generational period, we have seen, or we will see, the introduction of the iPad, Instagram, Siri, GoPro, 3D printers, Google Glass, HoloLens, Apple Watch, smart speakers, AirPods, 5G, biometrics, autonomous vehicles, and at the tail end, we're going to see quantum computing, and the list continues on and on. So not only did they move to conducting school virtually, technology has become an integral part to how school is conducted. Elementary age kids are using laptops and tablets in schools. They use these laptops to do homework. They're online in their spare time and even when they're having fun. Writing classes are being replaced with typing classes. Their lives revolve around technology more than ever before, and they're even coding at a very young age. So not only are today's kids remarkably connected with technology, but they are incredibly bright, and they are already planning their future. These are today's 6th graders. They already have a 6-year plan, a 6-year plan. So how do we, as recruiters, connect with them at a young age so they're thinking about the Army as an option after graduation? The bottom line is Generation Alphas will enter the workforce in 2030. They will be our lieutenants, and they will soon be our commanders of our units. Technology and the metaverse are taking a front seat, and we need to make sure we are ready, keeping up and adjusting our recruiting, our training, and our leader development approaches accordingly, or we will continue to be challenged with recruiting and retaining the talent we need for multi-domain operations and also the Army of 2030 and beyond. So how are we incorporating this new technology? We need to better leverage immersive type environments to expand the awareness of numerous opportunities available when you serve. Now, we already do some things, but our reach is extremely limited. And we need to do better connecting with our younger generations. Generation Z and Alphas, they want to understand the experience better. They need to be able to see themselves in the role, and they need to visualize that role before they ever make a decision. The metaverse could be a way to extend our reach, improve our brand awareness through advertisement placement, and create an experience which could pique the interest and expand the awareness of serving in the military for our youth. The Army could use the metaverse as a platform of opportunity to inject its messages of career opportunities and benefits with potential recruits, and also leverage the platform to instill the Army mission and values into the social mainstream. We really would like for our Generation Alphas, who are 6th graders now, to at least have an awareness of serving in the military before they ever lock in that 6-year plan. Now, I'll close this section by saying, yes, recruiting is tough. However, we are gaining momentum this year through several initiatives we put in place, such as the Future Soldier Prep Course conducted at Fort Jackson and Fort Moore. Now, for those of you that didn't know, Fort Moore used to be Fort Benning. We're also investing in our youth to meet the standard. The Future Soldier Prep Course assists potential applicants in raising their academic and physical performance in order to meet our standard before they ever enter into basic combat training. Now, even with this success, we must do more. Gen Zs and Gen As want to serve, but the newfound skills obtained through incredible advancements in technology, it means that they communicate differently, they interact differently, and they desire to be engaged differently. And we must transition from our industrial age accessions processes and policies and move towards a digital informed accessions and training process. I believe our challenge with recruiting Gen Z is pushing us in that direction slowly. But Gen A will expect and demand we engage through an immersive digital approaches. So ladies and gentlemen, that talked about what we could potentially use the commercial metaverse. I want to transition to what we're doing in training. So as you know, the Army has already moved out on transitioning to a training and leader development approach that uses augmented reality, virtual reality, and immersive environments in our classrooms and training. However, we are still tied to the brick and mortar, and we also rely very heavily on the PowerPoint approach in our professional military education programs. Our Combined Arms Center training and also the synthetic training environment cross-functional teams are the experts on how the Army is integrating these technologies into training. Fortunately, I'm very familiar with both, so I'm going to give you a little bit of a thumbnail of what's happening. The Army started down the path to improve its stovepiped, its disjointed and disconnected live virtual and constructive training capabilities several years ago with the vision, and that vision is what we call the synthetic training environment, or STE. The STE vision was to have an interconnected, live, virtual, and constructive environment from the individual soldier to the core Army service component level, all based on the same architecture with common standards, common authoritative data, common 3D terrain, which was creating a dynamic, realistic operational environment able to replicate all domains, be delivered to the point of need, with the understanding that the STE would allow for improved training, to get more reps and sets in the virtual world, allow for better planning and execution in the constructive environment, and then be integrated into the live environment to improve performance. As we laid the STE out, we understood the software, the STE information system, and the 3D terrain called One World Terrain would provide the foundation, or as I call it, the heart and the brains of STE. And this heart and brains would enable our virtual, live, and constructive environments to converge to create this single environment, or another way to think about it is basically the Army has created a realistic sandbox video game platform of the planet and outer space that can support distantly located soldiers from all over the planet to work and train together in this 3D sandbox over a network, which could also be called an early concept of the metaverse for training. We knew if we created this environment, then this convergence and bringing in the constructive element would allow the Army to achieve multi-domain operations. But what the Army is doing in the synthetic training environment, our metaverse equivalent, is not the same as what is taking place or required in the commercial sector, as it is critical that the Army's metaverse is as realistic as possible to include the Earth's terrain so that it can support the design and training of the operational missions. The metaverse means a lot of different things to a lot of different people. I often reference Neil Stephenson because he documented what he thinks the metaverse will look like. What he described and what we are doing are clearly not the same. When you talk to industry, they are very different. Microsoft may be focusing on a collaborative work effort. Facebook may focus on the social aspect. If you talk to Amazon, they may say it's all about improved shopping experiences. But as you can tell, it all comes back down to the different use cases that we each have. The Army is interested in improving training. STE revolutionizes Army training by providing the repetitions necessary at the point of need to improve soldier lethality and survivability. The STE replicates complexities associated with multi-domain operations and features combined arms collective maneuver training for soldiers, leaders, and staffs. Now, STE started down this journey long before the metaverse became a buzzword in industry. What we are trying to do is replicate a training environment with an aggressive, unconstrained operational force in order to provide a very realistic environment for our soldiers. As I indicated earlier, the Army has a strategic opportunity to design, designate content to contribute to the metaverse so we can build a foundation that attracts and can give something meaningful to Generation A so that they would like to serve. I think one of the common denominators when we talk about the metaverse is the idea that it's an authoritative environment where everyone in the Army can log in and be able to navigate to a single place to explore, consume, or download realistic environmental simulation models and to communicate and socialize ideas to inform other soldiers. The Army wants to replicate different realistic environmental effects to achieve some specific training results. So the metaverse would provide realistic environmental models for the soldier to implement to ensure their training is realistic. Some units may be at a lower level of training. Therefore, we want to give them a perfect site in the middle of the day with perfect lighting conditions. Some may be further along in their training continuum, where we are going to use the rheostat to crank it up a little bit. We'll add in additional effects, whether it's night, fog, or more lethal OP4. But it is not one size fits all for the Army. We want to be able to turn the rheostat up and down based on where the training audience is, and the STE provides an early metaverse that provides the soldier with this type of capability. Within the STE, there will be multiple instantiations of the environment to achieve specific effects, not a single authoritative environment that you can go to. The Army can fire up as many instantiations of the STE environment as needed. The Army is also investigating using streaming technology to deliver the STE at the point of need as well, no matter on what kind of electronic mobile device a soldier may have in their possession. They can enter and participate within the STE. Now, this concept of using the metaverse in training is particularly attractive for military training applications because we are invested in retraining. We absolutely need to train soldiers how to interact with the digital world as much as the physical world in combat. We are focused on battle drills, collective training, tasks, etc., and they're all informed with programs of record. But the reality is that they need to think about electrons and spectrum as much as they do about the dirt. Switching displays, toggling views, data overload are all training that is either at best an afterthought or at worst is ignored. Now we are in the metaverse to a certain extent now, certainly the younger generation. They have a symbiotic relationship between the digital and physical world. And yes, it's not through AR or VR or as we saw in Ready Player One, but it is deliberate and coordinated, and often one can't survive without the other. For example, navigating via Google Maps or Apple Maps on your phone. Do we know anyone today that still uses paper maps in their cars anymore? And if you do, you don't need to raise your hand. Today, platforms like Discord are connecting us in ways that we never expected from around the world. With the incredible ability to connect with others also comes dangers of misuse. As technology continues to advance and the metaverse continues to develop, there will be better ways to connect and sharing realities, and there will also be increased potential of threat and abuse. But what does the future of the metaverse look like? Technologies like AI, which are already here today with OpenAI and ChatGPT, will even further distance my generation and millennials from Gen Z and Gen A. And there's no telling what other developments the metaverse will see. What will the future of online communication look like? And what is the next platform for training? So where are we and where do we need help? As I said earlier, with leaps in technology advancements comes much joy and innovation, but also risk. Metaverse has so many upsides, everything from immersive learning, engaging and even onboarding our new recruits and civilians, to training, to collaboration, and to leading to common understanding and improved decision-making through visualization. We still have work to do to capitalize on the opportunities created by the metaverse and our military equivalent known as the STE. Now, my experience as the DCG of CAT-T and STE CFT, and also now this job that I'm in now has led me to understand that there are 3 underlying principles which should drive the outcomes that we are trying to achieve. Number 1, have the soldier involved every step of the way. If they see value in the technology, they will embrace it, and they will show you how it can best be employed to meet their need and accomplish the mission. This is exactly what we saw with One World Terrain, 3D Terrain, which started as a training initiative, but then was soon used operationally and is now being on glide path for use in precision targeting, and also adapted as the new way to do targeting. And we appreciate all the help from the National Geospatial Agency. Number 2, the second underlying principle, user interface and experience is a top priority. If it is not good, they will walk away. And number 3 is content is king. So challenges with the metaverse from our foxhole is the displays and visualizations right now. The displays have a long way to go. The processing and power constraints must get smaller, and that will eventually drive content. We eventually want to get to a place like the heads-up display that are in an aircraft. But in an aircraft, you are in a fixed space with constrained mobility and very clear set of tasks. But on the ground, there is much more difficult to replicate where there are so many variables. Content is the long pole in the tent. Augmented reality, virtual reality is content starved. There simply isn't enough of it to make a compelling, enriching experience, and we have to make it so that it is much easier to generate user content and also to be able to verify that user content, especially when we're training. It is also a challenge to organize the data in which we have already captured through the years to reform it in any way in which we can so that we can train our AI to build an Army data lake in which the AI can analyze and query out the information relevant to a soldier at any point in time. And then, as you heard on the last panel, security and privacy is a big concern. The ubiquitous of devices and applications that can see and pull each other's data and share it with everyone, anyone willing to pay, means we're constantly surveilled, either by companies or by others, including non-friendly actors. We have to think about this seriously. Army Futures Command is doing exactly that through things like Zero Trust, and we have to instill its importance in every soldier. Not just instill in every soldier, but they must be disciplined. So in closing, ladies and gentlemen, the metaverse is here in its infancy. It is coming, and as our future generations emerge, growing up and knowing nothing else but these very immersive environments, they will expect nothing less than a metaverse, digital, immersive experience in their recruitment, in their training, in their leader development, and even operational experience. Recruiting the next generation of soldiers and leaders will take the Army investing in modernizing the way it operates. 10 years ago, the Army had America's Army, a game. It helped show a new generation of soldiers not only that the Army was cutting edge, but it also showed them the ins and outs of Army life. And we need to develop the next version of America's Army game in the metaverse. So ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. You know, as yesterday was Armed Forces Day, and as we head into the Memorial Day weekend, I would just offer that may God bless you, may God bless those that are deployed in harm's way, along with our Gold Star family members, and may God always, always bless this great nation of ours. Thank you.
Ma'am, you ready to take some questions now?
Absolutely.
All right, I'll tap dance a little bit, get you a fresh drink of water there, and then we'll go about. So, ma'am, I overly appreciate it. You mentioned Ready Player One. We might have to get you to get the next Top Gun movie here for the Army to increase recruits that way as well. All right, ma'am, so the first question that's coming in, a lot of things about synthetic training environment. Can you give any update beyond your prepared remarks of how things are going there?
Yeah, so first of all, teammates, I'll start this way. So you heard me mention One World Terrain. One World Terrain was an effort that started as a training initiative only. But because of the utility, we found a cross-cutting technology which now was being used operationally in operations that you've seen in Afghanistan, what you've seen in Iraq, what you've seen in Syria, across the board. And through that led to the need to ensure that it could be we could do targeting against it. Working with National Geospatial Agency and all stakeholders to include Army Futures Command and Project Convergence and all our sister services. What we have found is that we have a path for that, and One World Terrain now is going to be also adopted over in the operational realm, so it can go into our mission command platforms and be used for targeting. So that's one. Secondly, as you recall, we had several parts to the STI, and the first part was the STI information system. And the STI information system was really the software that we needed. And we wanted that software to have an open architecture with common standards and be able to set the foundation for the virtual and the constructive, and also to interface with our live training environment. So that has occurred. We were working on our virtual platforms, the reconfigurable virtual collective trainers for both the air and the ground. We will tell you that the hardware went through some testing. We have the hardware right. And now we're moving forward with the integration of that, and it's on glide path for a test coming up in 24 and with fielding in FY24. So that pace is accelerating. That was all Inc. 1. We have accelerated our efforts in the live training environment so that we can replace, what is our laser miles gear. We've run a series of tests for the past year and a half, and we have some very promising technology that looks like we can replace miles. How many of you use miles? Yeah, it's not well thought of, and we can do better, and it's well on the glide path. And then we're starting the work right now to get after what is called next generation constructive. And next generation constructive is think big war game. It's the one where we plan our brigade staffs and hire to execute a mission. And ladies and gentlemen, when we bring all that together, we will be able to train multi-domain operations. We will be able to train our modernization efforts that are coming in to include hypersonics. We will be able to interface with our joint partners and our allies. So it's moving, and it's starting to develop, and we should start to see a lot of the products come out in 24.
And based on your current job at TRADOC, let's go back a little bit. What would be the letter you write to yourself, any advice, best practices now at TRADOC going back to Futures Command? Any lessons learned that you would tell yourself?
Yeah, taking a look at it, teammates, looking back, and as you know, the cross-functional teams, when they stood up, we had several charters. Number one was to take a look at how could we better orchestrate the requirements, the S&T efforts, and also streamline the acquisition process. We were so used to throwing our requirement over the fence to our acquisition partner, having them translate that. I think we did a very good job in that aspect of it. But I wish that we had taken a little bit of time and just focused on what I call the heart and the brain of STI. The heart and the brain, and really understanding what that architecture needed to look like, how it needed to look like, and get it out to our unbelievable industry partners so that they could start building, I would say, probably more simultaneously versus some of the things that we were working our way through to do sequentially. That was what I would probably write back to myself.
Well, I think the interesting thing about obviously lessons learned is also going forward. Can you talk a little bit about the relationship with TRADOC, with the Futures Command, and certainly as your past stomping grounds to your current job now, what's the relationship there?
So it's a great relationship. As you know, Army Futures Command is really, they're focused on, the future operating concept. They're focused on the big M, and then TRADOC comes in, and we are the ones that really ensure the integration of DOT-MIL PF, so Doctrine, Organization, Training, Leader Development, and the personnel. And so as Army Futures Command is developing the future concept, so focused on the Army of 2040, and what it looks like we need to do for that, in addition to Army of 2030, we are taking a look at it and going, what are the skill sets that we need? When do we need to start recruiting? How do we need to change the knowledge, skills, and behaviors? So we work hand in glove with Army Futures Command on this. In addition, we work hand in gloves as we're with them as we're doing the collecting the lessons learned that we're observing. More of the lessons observed that eventually will probably turn into lessons learned that we're seeing come out of the Ukraine and the Russian conflict that's going on over there. In addition, we work very closely with them on what is the operational environment going to look 2030, 2040. So I will tell you, coming back after being part of Army Futures Command, I think we have a very tight relationship because we need all parts of it. delivering a piece of kit doesn't mean you have a piece of capability. You got to have the right unit, they got to be trained, you got to have the right leaders in place, you got to have the right skill sets, and time on target with the right doctrine.
And kudos to you, ma'am, having that continuity between the two as well. It's very good there. Now, shifting a little bit more to the metaverse, when looking at recruiting, a question came in here about, what is the relationship? How is the Army leveraging the metaverse with recruiting? Or is there a thought maybe to reserving or booking real estate based off of Generation Alpha, Generation Z, as you talked about in your speech?
Yeah, so you kind of heard me talk about we're a little lagging a little bit in this space. I will tell you, ladies and gentlemen, after being at TRADOC for 18 months and really after being there for 6 months saying your job is now to go look at the accessions enterprise, I think what we have to do is we have to improve our whole accessions enterprise. So, when you think about it, one part's recruiting, one part of the equation is the attrition, what you have in your basic training that attrits and your first unit of assignment, and then what we retain in the Army. I think what we did is we got too comfortable because we were meeting the whole equation and strength that we didn't really see some of the things that we needed to do inside of our recruiting apparatus. Because I'll tell you right now, if you processed, through, and nobody in this room did, came through in like World War II, I will tell you there probably are some procedures that have not changed since that time. The whole way we recruit and advertise, the whole way we bring you in, we still do things where we type it in on we have you fill out the piece of paper, we have you type it in, it goes in, then we have to bring it back. It takes us about anywhere from 60 to 180 days to bring a young man or woman into the United States Army, because they still got it through the military entrance processing station, they still got to go get a physical, they got to get all these other things that have to be done. That flash to bang, that's not meeting instant gratification, as I just discussed. So we're looking at how do we change that? How do we go? I mean, look, I can pull up my phone right now and I can go on all these different websites and apply for jobs, right? It can even tell me where I need to go get a drug test, right? It can tell me what I need to provide for physical. I can be hired in a week. Okay, but that's not how we do it in the United States Army nor in some of our sister services. So we are looking at how do we change that. Now, getting to your question on the metaverse, it goes back to where are they? Mm-hmm. Where are those, the audience that we have to be able to recruit, we have to talk with? Right now, I mean, look, we know that the gaming community is on Discord. We have a lot of gamers. We have our esports team. They're on Discord. We can't be on TikTok, but we're trying to be on Instagram, everywhere that they are, because you have to be able to be in those conversations. And then we have, one of the things we have to do, and Gen A, you heard 6-year plan. How do we talk to Gen A or Gen A, at least have an idea of what the potential to serve is and what it means and what they could do if we can't even be part of the conversation, right? So I think there's opportunities in the metaverse to do advertisement. We're not doing it yet. We're working our way through it on how to best do it. And then we also have to make sure, because quite frankly, nobody can see that we're recruiting 6th graders, because we're not. Okay, I said that again. We are not recruiting 6th graders. All right? All we're trying to do is provide awareness so that, somebody gets and they're 17, 18, 19 years old and they know nothing about the military except what they've seen on TV or what they've heard or what they potentially have seen in movies, because that's a little bit of the challenge that we're seeing with the Generation Zs, but also some of our influencers.
Well, ma'am, I will tell you as a selfish plug, when reviewing with my daughter who's 8, even showing your bio, showing the experiences here, even you being here and having a speaker, that speaks volumes to the generation as well. So I don't want to discredit getting folks out in the Army and making sure that they know there. All right, off of my soapbox for a second. Going back a little bit more towards the retention aspect of things. Things are constantly changing. Earlier panel said today that 50% of the jobs were not even established when they were little kids. How are you updating MOSs in the Army? When looking at things like software coding, data science, others, to have that identity with the soldiers, civilians, et cetera, throughout the Army?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and I think that's a very critical question, because see, I think what sometimes gets lost is that, we say, okay, we need somebody that has the skill and we're gonna have autonomy. And so we want gamers because they're used to doing that, they're used to working drones, or we need more data scientists, we need more to do this. The challenge we have is that we still have to bring them in, recruit them, find them, right? So we've got to be really looking out 10, 15 years ahead, because it's just not that. We got to recruit the soldiers, but we got to grow the leaders, right? And you don't just plop a leader in. It takes, anywhere from 6 to 10 years to get the right leadership in place so that when you have the soldiers, they know how to execute their mission. So as we're doing it, we're looking at the future operating concept. We're taking a look at currently what we have in terms of what we call knowledge, skills, and behaviors. How do those knowledge, skills, and behaviors need to change? And what is the mixture that we need? And then I think we have to go back and say, how does it change in terms of what we incentivize and what we have to do inside the military? And I'll just say it because it's coming back to recruiting. One of the big discussions right now is why can't we have beards inside the United States Army, right? It's a big discussion. Well, you got to ask yourself, could there be people that have beards in the future? Is it somebody that's going to be that's doing autonomy and is orchestrating that type of mission? Is that the same thing that you need for somebody that needs to close in and destroy the enemy? So we're having all of those discussions, but we have to do that 10 to 15 years before, right? Because if not, we're trying to recruit right now what we need for our air defense, what we need for hypersonics, what we're going to need for some of this sophisticated equipment coming in. The great news is it was great modernization efforts and we accelerated it. Now we're trying to catch up.
Yeah, ma'am, I overly appreciate the questions that are coming in, and I'm actually going to escalate this one right to the top. We talk about the process that the United States wants to adopt. You're putting in the plan there. What about foreign partners? Is there anything that we can basically copy and paste from? How are other I will say, nations, partners, how's their recruiting going? Can we learn anything from them?
Yeah, so it's tough in their recruiting environments too. But the great news is, we have foreign liaison officers that sit in the training and doctrine headquarters, and each one of them laid out what they're doing for recruiting and then their different initiatives. We've actually taken some of them. Some of the ways they do social media, some of the ways they were sort of using the metaverse, and I think it was Brazil that was using the metaverse. It was almost like this avatar that, hey, if you wanted to be in the military, you come in and you have this avatar. It did look cartoonish, though, I will say that. But it was a good concept that we actually are taking a look at and exploring. I would tell you, ladies and gentlemen, we're looking at using AI too, and we have a lot of companies that are coming to us saying, hey, we can help you find those that are propensed. We can do some outreach for you and kind of help narrow it down for the recruiters. Because what we see, what we see right now is 23% of Americans can come in without a waiver. Without a waiver. That's either a physical waiver, that's either something for mental, moral misconduct, obesity. When I talked about the Future Soldier Prep course, what we saw in some of the numbers is we are seeing lower academic scores on the Armed Service Vocational Aptitude Battery Test. They're still qualified to come in the United States Army. We are also seeing an increase in obesity. So what we did is we said, we're going to invest in you, academic arm, we're doing a fitness arm, and quite frankly, it has been more successful than we ever anticipated. 97% are improving their scores in 6 weeks. And the fitness component, as soon as we take them off Red Bull, salt, processed food, get them some sleep, teach them some nutrition, and they do a little bit of physical training, they're in. And once we invest in them, ladies and gentlemen, we have them because they love what they do, they have great leadership, but there are just some things that we have to overcome and understand and then move forward, because at the end of the day, we still got to field an army for our nation.
Ma'am, last question for you here. How can this audience help? We've had a great session here today. They're going to be here all week. What ways can they help you?
Yeah, so I'm going to give it 2 ways. The first one is recruiting. Realize everybody's a recruiter, right? And you don't necessarily have to come to the United States Army and wear a uniform. We have great civilians and great teammates too. So, as you just tell the Army's story, we have a great value proposition. We do. And we're just not telling that story enough or reconnecting. And, you know, part of that was COVID, right? Part of that was COVID coming back. We lost 2+ years as we were going forward. And so we just got to get back out there because everybody wants to help. From an industry partner, if you have an idea that can help us, whether it's with better aggregating data, whether different way to think about how to do medical processing, just shoot me a note and let's take a look at it. For the STE, synthetic, so I got 3 things. Synthetic training environment, I would say this. Ladies and gentlemen, when I first stood up and told everybody what the vision for STE was, I got to tell you, people looked at me like I had a horn growing out of my head. Some of the things I'm still saying, you're still looking at me that way. But I will tell you what has amazed me. What has amazed me is how far it has come, and we're starting to see the reality of it. And everything that's being talked about in here, it's only the tip of the iceberg. It's only the tip of the iceberg. And what happened was, Jeff, we threw out all the hard challenges, and you guys came back, and I'm amazed where we are. But we got to improve some things. We do, it's coming, and you know it. And so the last piece of advice that I would just offer here is just please remember, something that works great in the commercial piece of it, we're going to have to do some real heavy lifting to make sure it works over on in the Army side of it. But we'll partner with you, and we'll start putting those tough problems on the table, and I know they'll get solved.
All please join me in thanking Lieutenant General Gervais for excellent comments here.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Absolutely.